Episode 202 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Brian Helfrich, CEO and owner of Summit Coffee Company, brought to you by Audible. Today's episode is brought to you by Audible. If you use Audible, then you know. If you're not, you're missing out. It's like having a library in your phone, and I use it a lot. Audible helps the miles fly by on the road or in the air as I'm enjoying great books I discover or are recommended to me by friends. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/theoutdoorbizpodcast. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Start your 30-day free trial with Audible today. audibletrial.com/theoutdoorbizpodcast. I've heard from outdoor retailers, brands, outfitters, and influencers that a constant challenge is engaging with new and existing customers. Multiple times a week, you scramble to post on social media, publish articles, blogs, videos, and more in order to grab attention. The problem is these posts are on passive mediums, which lead to limited engagement and action. Today, a better option is a podcast, but you might think you don't have time, budget, or talent to produce a podcast. You do, and I'll show you how. Your podcast will reach more customers, helping them learn and get inspired, which will lead to stronger relationships and more sales. With a broader reach to an unlimited amount of customers, there is a clear opportunity to meaningfully impact a huge number of people. Your podcast will deliver these results and more, and I will show you the way. Go to podcastersworkshop.com/brainstorm to schedule your free brainstorm call, and we'll get your podcast on the path from idea to published. Visit podcastersworkshop.com/brainstorm. Summit Coffee Company is a national coffee and lifestyle brand that's quickly making a name for themselves in the outdoor space. In addition to operating its own cafés, Summit runs a coffee importing and roasting business, is selling franchise units, and just released instant coffee to its portfolio. I'm really excited about that. Brian is a graduate of Davidson College in North Carolina with a degree in creative writing and a background in journalism. He and his wife Tyler have 2 kids, and when not working in the coffee business, Brian can be found running in the very early mornings around Asheville. Hey, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rick, for having me.
Yeah, good to catch up with you after OR. Looks like you guys had a successful OR. Every time I went by that booth, it was slammed.
Yeah, we did. And, it was our first time at OR, so we really had no idea what to expect. We had a history running coffee shops, obviously, so we know what we're doing, but
right.
It was even better than we anticipated.
And you didn't get overrun by the volume? It looked like there was quite a line there. You guys are used to that, I'll bet, running a coffee shop.
We were. I mean, I think going back in the summer show, we thought about even bringing a second espresso machine to double our ability for output, but people were really gracious with waiting in the line, and we were pretty quick at turning it around.
You guys were.
Yeah, we brought our A-plus barista team, and they handled the rush really well.
Nice, right on. So how'd you get introduced to the outdoors?
Great question. I grew up in sports. And so as the youngest of 4 boys, I spent all my time outside, whether it was playing soccer or playing in the woods or, going on camping trips. And so it just became our family thing. So it was like, it sort of was ingrained in me from day one. My parents took me to my oldest brother's soccer game on the way home from the hospital when I was born. So I went to a soccer game before I ever went to my house.
Right out of the get-go. Wow.
Yeah, I guess they wanted to make sure I got it to the point.
Exactly. And was soccer your sport?
It was. I played soccer competitively until college, and then, have now done a bunch of different things. And I run a lot and hike and adventure, but that was my sport growing up primarily.
Right on. Have you done any more traditional? Have you rafted or climbed? You've been running. You've been hiking. Any backpacking?
Yep, I've done some backpacking. I've not done a ton of climbing itself.
Yep.
I like to say that my adventure limits are about what I feel like I can control. And so rafting, I've done. I do a lot of canoeing and kayaking, and have done a fair share of adventuring. I traversed the Grand Canyon back. I did the rim to rim to rim a few years ago. So that's cool. About a 48-mile day hike, which was a long day.
Man, no kidding.
So cool. Endurance sports, I'd say.
Yep. And how'd you get into the coffee business?
My older brother got into the coffee business first. And again, growing up as the youngest of 4, I always tried to emulate my brothers. And in Summit Coffee, we had one cafe in Davidson, North Carolina on this tiny stretch of Main Street. And about 9 years ago, he approached me when I was a journalist and asked if I would help him figure out how to grow the business. And so I came on board first as a marketing director and business development person, and then ultimately bought part of the business and then bought the majority of the business. And for a while, coffee was, I think, just the business I happened to be in. I was more interested in entrepreneurship and and creating new ideas. And ultimately, I've sort of found the nice harmony of where becoming a coffee person as well. But it's been a nice sort of accidental career.
Well, it looks like you've parlayed that into a good little business. I mean, you guys have a roasting business. You sell franchise units. You just released instant coffee. 3 locations, right?
Yeah, it's exactly right. We have three locations plus our roasting facility, which is sort of the heart of the business. So we import coffee, roast it, distribute it all over the country.
Yeah.
And now we're selling franchises. And just this week is the actual go from the government that we can sell. So
very cool. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
and have you had some interest in that yet?
Yeah, we've marketed only within our own networks because we want the people to understand the brand. Our first handful of store owners, and we have a list of about 25 people who've gone through the interview process and are now reviewing documents, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Right on. And tell everybody about the freeze-dried portion. I was intrigued by that because I think the outdoor retail market is just in dire need of some great freeze-dried coffee. Everybody uses Starbucks, or there's a bunch of other options, but some of the other options I've used they're kind of clunky in the backcountry. There's a lot of trash involved and whatnot, and your solution seems simple. It
is simple, and it was sort of bred out of necessity. So I'm a traveler, and again, I'm an endurance athlete, and a lot of times, obviously coffee is part of my routine, but it was a couple instances last year where one, I was traveling in Italy and didn't have access to coffee equipment, and was thinking there has to be a better way to drink coffee here and without drinking, cruddy coffee. And then I was running a marathon this fall and was in a hotel room and thought to myself, how in the world am I going to make coffee before this race? Nothing's open. It's 5 a.m. And then, started doing my due diligence and found an awesome manufacturing partner out of San Francisco who has figured out how to make coffee drinkable in the instant form. And we wouldn't do it. We're very protective over our brand and our quality control, and so we wouldn't have done it if we didn't think that it was good and it was something that we wanted to enjoy ourselves. And they have this proprietary method that so they brew the coffee and then sort of gently freeze it rather than applying heat to it, and it becomes this crystallized dehydrated coffee. So all you do to make it is you're basically rehydrating it. You add 8 to 10 ounces of water, and it can be hot water, it can be cold water, and all of a sudden, within 5 seconds, you've got a cup of coffee.
Wow! And they can do all kinds of roasts, different French roast, anything.
Yeah, and so we've made it a point to try to change the reputation of instant coffee, and it's an ambitious goal, but we're using direct trade, single origin coffee to basically pronounce to the community, "Hey, here's our best coffee." And we're putting it in instant. We're not trying to hide bad coffee in here. We're not trying to pull one over on you guys. We want our best coffee in this new product.
That's great, man. Kudos to you, because I'm in the same boat. All the traveling I've done, I've been to Asia a bunch, and you get in the hotel room and there's all this tea, but there's no coffee. And I succumb to the Starbucks instant, which is, I think, the best stuff out there. But it's, I don't like to support those big guys. I'd rather support someone small. And some of their coffee tastes, I think it's okay, but it's a little burnt in my opinion.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm excited to find you guys. That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I will say I'm not a particular fan of the Starbucks coffee. I think they've done some really cool things with their business, and they have such a portion of the coffee industry that whatever they do, people pay attention to. And so,
kudos to them. Yeah, they basically created the whole.
I'm always hoping that they make the right decisions and choose the right things. And I really am excited about their entry into the non-dairy milk market more heavily that they've been doing in the last few months. The sustainability of oat milk is something we believe in, and Starbucks is getting behind it too. So that should only help our ability to get oat milk at better prices and get customers more aware.
Yeah, they're doing something right. That's for sure.
Right, they single-handedly can, sort of lift the industry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so you have 3 locations. Are they traditional coffee shops? Do you do food? Tell us a little bit about the locations and the coffee.
So we have 3 locations, all in North Carolina. They're centered around areas where they can build community. So it's a little cliche to be the third place, but we do coffee, we do our own pastries, we bake everything in house. We do beer and wine, is a big part of our business. We do live music and other events. So
cool.
We're basically open from 6 a.m. to 10 or 11 p.m. and we're trying to serve people at all hours of the day. So coffee, again, is the primary part of our business, but it's, so much of what we're doing is about trying to make people's lives better and make our communities better. And so whether that's like the local Davidson community or whether that's the outdoors community and everything that we do is rooted in that purpose.
That's great. And what do you find most fun and rewarding about coffee, the coffee business? Is it the cafes, the roasting part? What do you love?
It's a great question. I really love employing people. Oh. When we have challenging times at our business, my wife keeps calling me back to the idea that we've created a lot of great jobs. And that to me is, if I have a legacy 30 years from now, when I hang them up, I hope that's sort of in my, my first couple sentences, is that he was a good employer. And so we're trying to be as progressive as we can. We're still a small company, but we're just became one of the first cafes in North Carolina, cafe businesses, to offer healthcare to all of our employees. So from baristas to all the way up. And that's just making a difference and really investing in the people who, spend their lives with us. I will, if I get on my soapbox, it's to say that coffee can be a career, and that, we're right on the campus of Davidson College, which is a really well-known and rigorous academic institution. We hire some students out of college who feel like they need to go to law school or go to investment banking. And, me trying to encourage them that living a life with meaning can mean investment banking or law school, but it also can mean working in your local community and in the coffee business. And so trying to help people reconcile that.
Well, and providing good jobs and good employment. I mean, that's part of the building community part of what you're doing. So that's perfect. Yeah, I love that.
Thanks.
And how about the most challenging part?
The most challenging part is
maybe it changes every day.
Well, it does, and for me, it's knowing how to delegate, and it's I'm getting better at it. But when you start with a business that's a coffee shop of 7 people, and it grows into this business where we are now, and we have 60 something people, you sort of have to retrain yourself constantly on what you can do, what you should do, what you need not worry about. And ultimately you have to look at people around you and say, not only are you capable of this, but you're actually probably better at it than I am. And so, constantly reminding myself not to get bogged down in, the details. And by choice, sometimes it's fun to jump behind the bar and wash the dishes and do that stuff, but not certainly at the expense of some making sure you're making good strategic decisions. Well,
and as things grow and change with the franchises coming on board, your job is going to change a lot, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm only 6 years removed from being the head of marketing for a single cafe in Davidson, North Carolina. So, things have changed quickly, and it's required a lot of, mindset shifting constantly. But I think it's a good place to come from, and it keeps me curious, which is one of my sort of big buzzwords is staying curious every day is, I think integral to my success.
Yeah, love it. Well, you're doing something right. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And before you got into coffee, you were assistant managing editor at Sports Business Daily. Tell us a little bit about that. You got a degree in journalism, right? You were saying?
I got a degree in creative writing, which my college roommates joke. It's Davidson has this program where if you don't like any of their majors, you can make your own. And so
I like that. I would have done well with that, I think.
Right. And so I really like English, but I didn't love all the literature courses that they wanted me to study. And I really wanted to get into writing, and they didn't have a journalism degree. So got into creative writing, and then got a job out of college working for this national sports business magazine. And I started out as a staff writer, and basically it's an industry trade. So it's news about the business side of sports from, from the major sports leagues, the NFL, the NBA, all the way down to the outdoors community and all the, business implications. So advertising, sponsorships, to licensing agreements, to, anything that's the business side of sports. And it's written about those things, and the people who read it are the people who are making those decisions. So it's a really high level niche publication, but you have access to all the people who read it. So the owners of the sports teams and the executives in the leagues. And so it was a really cool exposure to how different companies run their businesses. So, the Nikes and the Under Armours of the world. And ultimately that's what got me going on entrepreneurship and marketing and creativity was, reporting on some of these businesses.
Did you get to meet some of the founders and some of the owners of those businesses and work with them?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I met a ton of amazing people, and it's they'd come to the office obviously to pitch themselves, but it was always a pretty cool experience to sit in a room and sort of even off the record just get to hear their story.
I'll bet. Yeah. So back to the coffee business. Are there any new initiatives you guys are working on, or anything you can talk about or want to talk about? I mean, the franchise is huge. I mean, that's going to be...
Yeah, the franchise is a big one. I think the instant coffee, the freeze-dried coffee is another big thing we're working on.
Yep.
We also just launched a new certification called Relationship Coffee. And basically, the global coffee industry is at a weird point right now where the commodity market is really low and farmers aren't getting paid well enough. And, the big players, we talked about the Starbucks, and there's a company not too far from here called SMD Coffee, which does all the coffee for McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts. And, they're just driving the prices down. And so we're trying to be a little bit of a disruptor and creating this standard that we hope other people adopt. And it's called Relationship Coffee. It's, not too radical, but it's basically a commitment to paying a certain amount for coffee and being transparent with what you paid and where it came from and the environmental conditions of these farms. And it's like a commitment to full transparency. And so it's, drawn on a couple of things that fair trade does in terms of pricing and stuff, but it's much more aggressive, where the fair trade minimum is $1.28. We're sort of saying we're not going to pay less than $2.50 for a coffee. And we're going to tell you how much we paid for it and where we got it from, and, how much the farmers actually got out of that $3 or $4 or $5, and just want, basically being a responsible business person.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Yeah.
And it's tough to measure the ROI on something like this. But again, if we're going back to making a difference in people's lives, that goes to how we employ people, to how we build our communities, but also how we're impacting the farmers at the end of the day. So
now, do you get to go down there and meet with the farmers and see the farms and the process?
It's something we do about 3 or 4 times a year.
Good. Yeah.
So I go down probably once a year. I have 2 young kids, and also have a staff of people that would jump at any opportunity to make these trips. So, I do a lot of the green coffee buying and importing, but we have a coffee team that was just in Honduras, and they're going to Guatemala 2 weeks from now. And we'll be in Colombia and Peru later this year. So, both meeting and establishing new partnerships, and also revisiting people we've been sourcing from for a handful of years.
So their reaction to this initiative has to be pretty positive, I would think.
Yeah, I think so. And a lot of it is about education. It's making sure they understand what the heck we're doing. I mean, there's obviously a language barrier, but
sure.
So you need to put it in a way that they can digest.
Yeah. And like anything, you need to tighten up your pitch, right? I mean,
right. And communication is so much about how people retain your information, not what you say. And so, we could go there and trumpet ourselves and get 100 farmers in a room and tell them who we are, but the only thing that matters is what they hear and what they get out of it.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit. If you could hang a huge banner at the front entrance to OR, what would it say?
That's a great question.
It's a new question. I stole that from Tim Ferriss.
I really like that. So our marketing slogan that we're really, we just trademarked actually, it's called Find Your Summit. And it was bred out of people asking me what the name Summit Coffee meant. And since I didn't start the business, I didn't decide it, but what I've done is sort of repurpose it for this abstract idea of what your summit is. And for some people in the outdoors, that's literally, I'm going to hike up this mountain and I'm going to rock climb. And for some people, it's like a daily challenge. And we want to be there for people. Again, go back to this purpose of making people's lives better. So whatever your summit is, we want to encourage you and support you in finding it.
I love that, because your summit changes too as you get older.
Absolutely.
When you're young and you're going to go bang out the top of that peak, it's easy. But when you get a little older, your knees are banged up, you're not going to go do that peak. It's going to be something else. But you still have a summit. Yeah, I love that.
And again, for me, sometimes it's waking up early and getting a run in, and sometimes it's making sure I walk my kids to school and have an engaging conversation on the way there. So it varies day to day and year to year, and it's an exciting thing to pursue.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. I love that. Excuse me. So do you have any suggestions or advice for folks wanting to get into the outdoor biz, or maybe get into the coffee biz?
One thing that blew me away at the OR show was how positive and open and optimistic everybody was. Yeah. I think I've gone to a ton of conventions and coffee conventions, and the outdoor stuck out to me a little bit because I think rarely did I see everyone just walking around on their phones and with their heads down. It seemed like people were willing to engage and ask good questions and answer good questions. And so I think, obviously it's a consumer show, but it strikes me, just ask questions and put yourself out there and go to events and go to, if there's an adventurist that's speaking at your local outdoor retail store, go talk to them and just really soak up and learn as much as you can and take opportunities. I think that, asking questions, and again, going back to this idea of curiosity, I think that, curiosity is the engine of achievement. And so if you want to do something, the best way to approach it is like, okay, let me ask a million questions, and that'll probably get you somewhere good.
I love it. Yep, that's right. That's kind of where the podcast started, was just to get those questions out and share the stories. And the outdoor industry, I've always said, is like a huge high school reunion, outdoor retailer. I mean,
it's amazing. I felt more like I belonged in that room and more like alive as our brand in that room than I ever have at a coffee convention. I just felt like our brand and our people was just much more aligned with the outdoors industry than the coffee industry, which was a really cool thing to discover.
Yeah, you found your home. Yeah, when your name drives a lot of that. Plus, you have good product, and I think all of your your website and your booth and all that stuff. Everything just looked right and tight, right, and people love that.
Thank
also.
You. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you guys are looking sharp.
We're trying.
Keep it up. Do you have any daily routines you use to keep your sanity? Meditate? Sounds
I
like
do.
You get a lot of exercise, sounds like.
I do. That is my meditation. So I have 2 young kids, and I live about a quarter mile from our cafes that are always open. Wow. And I employ a team. So I'm, once the day really starts, once the sun rises, I'm constantly on. And so I get up every day at 4:30 and I run.
Oh, wow.
It is my meditative, get my brain going state of doing things. And so it's the only thing I really do by myself and for myself. And it's just, both my parents were runners. And so again, I grew up with that in my blood, and it's just something that I've adopted as I've entered into adulthood and had kids. And I can't imagine what I would do without it. So God forbid I ever get injured and have to sit on the sidelines. I think, I'd probably go crazy, or at least need to figure out someone else to do.
Yeah, get on a bike or something. Yeah, my knees are bad. I used to run like that a lot, and over the years, the knees have precluded that. So, and I can't find, bicycling just is not the same for some reason for me.
Yeah, I cycle. I've done triathlons, and and I cycle for transportation, but running, is just, at this point in my life, at least, it does something more for me.
It's kind of, I think it's related to the speed of running, because you're kind of moving forward, and you can pick up the pace or slow it down, but the pace at which you're going typically allows your mind to absorb and think and get to certain places, where bicycling, you're going a little faster, you're having to look at obstacles, and I don't know, it's just different. I've never thought about that before, but
yeah, I like trail running too as a variation, because it's also it's almost a different sport. Obviously you're getting a similar amount of exercise, but just the, where your mind goes when you're trail running and being in the woods. And I didn't never carry a watch when I'm trail running. You're just sort of out there and you're just going, and it's you and the trail, and it's a beautiful thing.
I love it. Yeah. How about some of your favorite podcasts or books? Do you give books as gifts very often?
I do give books as gifts. So
cool.
All of my direct reports, I read books with them every quarter.
Love that.
So I pick an individual book for each person that reports to me, and we read books together. Sometimes they're about business, sometimes they're about culture, sometimes they're about peace of mind. And it depends on what I think would benefit that person at the time. And so it's a good challenge for me.
That's a great idea
to get to know people. It's like, okay, for this quarter, every week we're going to get together for 20 minutes and talk about these next couple chapters of, I just finished a book called Great Mondays, which talked about company culture, which was good. We've read Pieces Every Step, which was a really great book. And sort of one of my all-time favorites is, and this is a little inside baseball in the outdoors industry, but is Let My People Go Surfing by Yvon Chouinard. And I, find that book on my bookshelf and go back to it pretty often.
Yeah, good. Cool. How about podcasts? Do you listen to podcasts?
So I do listen to podcasts. It's the one way that I digest my sports content.
Gotcha. Yeah, love that. Yeah,
I don't watch much live sports anymore. I grew up in Cleveland, so I'm a Cleveland sports fan. But Other than that, I don't really digest sports except for when I'm driving to our cafés, or sometimes I listen to podcasts when I'm running. And so I listen to a ton of podcasts from, there's a company called The Ringer, based in LA, by this guy, Bill Simmons, who used to work for ESPN. And they have a bunch of sports and pop culture podcasts. And Spotify actually just bought them last week. But
saw that. Yeah.
I read or listen to a lot of those pods.
Cool. How about, do you do books on tape, books in the car, that kind of thing?
I don't do books on tape. And somebody asked me this the other day, because I mean, I've tried it, and if I'm in a real hurry to read something, I'll do it on tape at 1.5 speed so I can, but I find that I digest it so differently. I feel like when I read a book, I'm a writer, at heart. So I can't read a book without a pen, because I underline and I write in the margins, and so again, if I find myself behind and I'm having a meeting in 2 hours with an employee to talk about a book that I haven't read yet, I'll throw it on Audible and I'll bang through 30 or 40 pages, but I prefer to read it in a physical copy.
Yeah, I'm with you. I haven't figured out how to take notes while you're driving the car. You just think of something you want to remember. It's like,
it's frowned upon, I think.
Yeah, how do I mark that? Yeah, exactly. How about your favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100? You have one?
Oh, my favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100. I mean,
it's got to be Summit Instant Coffee, right?
Right. I mean, to pitch it at Summit Instant Coffee, I do think, it's simple, but a good jet boil is, it's small, it serves so many purposes. And, it's something that if I'm doing a long run even, or, like I said, when I'm hiking across the Grand Canyon, it's something you can pack in and pack out pretty easily that, I don't often take adventures without.
Yep. Perfect. Yep. And as we wrap up here, is there anything else you'd like to say to our listeners or ask of our listeners?
I think it's really important to, this is cliche, but to get outside. I mean, I think the world is changing and we're getting busier, and I think it's a good opportunity to see the world and see other people and to discover yourself. And I think there's so much going on in our phones, and it's hard to put it down and step away. But both from a culture standpoint and just a personal standpoint, the benefit of spending time exploring and in fresh air and being with people in nature is just, there's no replacement for that. And, it's a tradition as old as time, but I still believe that there's tremendous value in that. And the last thing, and, going back, I talked about curiosity being sort of one of my big words. I think a lesson that a woman who's a customer in our store in Davidson, is actually like 85 years old. I was talking to her a couple of years ago about my daughter, and she was asking how she was doing in school. And she said that, I told her, she's wicked smart. And she interrupted me and said, well, let me tell you something. She goes, there's plenty of smart people in the world. We need more kind people in the world. And so just make sure that you encourage her to be kind, because, smart, we don't necessarily need more smart people these days, but we definitely need more kind people. And
Love
so
that,
I've really taken that to heart, and, try to raise my kids in that way and manage my team in that way, and try to encourage as many people as I can. That's to
very wise
of
that woman. Yep, very wise. Yep. And if people want to follow up, how can they find you? How can they reach out?
Yeah,
we'll link to Summit Coffee.
Yeah,
and all
please.
That in the show notes,
check us out on. We're pretty active on Instagram and Facebook, and I love communicating, and I'm one of these people that, despite my telling you to put your phone down a lot of times during the workday, I have my email pulled up on my computer. I'm not a check it every 8 hours type of person, and I love hearing from people and answering questions and jumping on a phone call. So if you want to talk about the outdoors or about coffee or about Summit specifically, just shoot me an email. It's on the website. It's
cool.
Brian@summitcoffee.com, and I will respond to you. And I'm excited just to constantly engage.
Awesome. We'll put links to all that in the show notes. That's awesome. Great. Well, I look forward to seeing you at the next OR.
Yeah, and I appreciate your time, Rick. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you for listening. If you want more of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, be sure and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast. Be sure and go to the outdoorbizpodcast.com, where you find all the episodes, show notes, and much, much more. Have a great week, and be sure to get outside.